podcast brought to you by Private Property. My name is Mbali Ngoko once again, and today we're joined by a thriving young farmer, Thabo Dithakgwe. We're going to speak about youth in farming, and today's podcast is all about Thabo. So let's get to know him a bit more. Thabo, how are you doing?
I am right yourself.
I'm good, thanks. Thank you for joining the farming podcast. It's great to have you here. And finally, at least I get to speak to another young farmer.
Yeah, that's good.
Great. So Thabo, tell us about you and where you're from. Just give us a brief background about yourself.
Thabo is a young farmer, well known as the youngest farmer in South Africa. Born and raised in the Northwest Province, farming in the Northwest Province, in the Dr. Ruth Mopati district. I'm a cattle farmer, stockman.
All right. And how did you get into farming, if I may ask?
I would say I was born in a family of farmers. So I was fortunate enough to at least inherit one of my livestock from my father. So I inherited livestock from my father at the age of 13, but I started managing the farm around 2017.
All right, awesome. So how big is your production at this stage and how many people are you employing?
The farms that I'm currently managing, I have one for 2,400, which I'm leasing from the state. I have one for 789, which is based in Comfort, which is under the CPA. And I'm currently employing 2 permanent employees and 4 seasonal workers.
Awesome. So your production, are you, you said you're a livestock farmer. Is it a mixed production? Is it only cattle? And what type of breed? If you could just give us an idea.
It's a mixed operation, but I'm more focused on the livestock, on the cattle production. But I also have sheep and goats, which I normally sell in bulk to the Durban market and then for the export market. But normally, yes, so the kind of the breed I have of cattle are your Bonsmaras, are your Simras, and other crosses that I just buy locally from local communities. And then in your goats, I do boar goats. I specialize in boar goats production. And then your sheep, I just do crossbreeds. So I crossbreed your Dorpers, Fantroids.
All right. Thabo, you mentioned that you inherited the farm back in 2017. So you obviously got this big responsibility that you had to manage. And you've just described the mixed cattle farming that you have. And so what are some of the challenges or stumbling blocks that you experienced when you started the farm?
Unfortunately, during that years, there was a time when I was hit by a drought. So I lost a numerous number of cattle, but as well, your stock theft. At that time, people took advantage of my age, seeing that I was very young. They normally stole a lot of cattle from me, sheep. But I would say it was an inside job because now having to be a manager at a very young age. Even your own employees, they undermine you and then they take advantage of your age. So these are some of the challenges that I faced during those years.
Wow, I'm glad you mentioned that challenge because not recently I was amongst cattle farmers and we discussed this whole Senegal farm murders issue that's happening in our country. And, some of the farmers who are farming in Free State also mentioned that with their cattle, majority of this stock theft is based in-house. It's always an inside job. It's never someone coming outside from the town or etc. And so, we always also profile farmers and ask them about their challenges. But what are some of the highlights that you've experienced throughout your farming journey so far?
The best highlight was getting a presidential recognition from our own president, Your Honorable Cyril Ramaphosa. I was invited last year. It is one of these functions in Sandton. That was the biggest highlight. And as well, just getting recognition from your local magazines, media houses, being up close with the ministers and MEC. I think that was one of the biggest highlights, actually, to be recognized by I mean, one of the best state officials. I mean, yeah, I think that's my best highlights so far.
Yeah, well, congratulations for that. Yeah, I think it's definitely commendable. Running a large number of cattle, as you mentioned, is not an easy joke, or not an easy job. Sorry, Thabo, just let me know. A number of people that really want to go into farming always ask, how can I get access to market? So I'm a vegetable farmer, you're a cattle farmer, but maybe walk us through the different avenues one could sell their cattle through.
We live in a world of technology. I mean, we have your social media platforms like your Twitter. This is normally where I do market some of my small stock, my goats, to the Durban market. So people do get access to my livestock. I mean, buying my livestock through social media. One other thing as well is the online bidding. We have your spot fair, we have your CDP auctioneers where you can actually buy livestock from your cell phone or from your laptop straight from home actually. So I mean, yeah, young people should take advantage of social media and all these technological developments come into space. I mean, that's actually how I do market. But I also have a close market and the local auctions. I do sell to local auctions. I do, post on Facebook. I mean, I do sell to locals during special occasions or during funerals. So that's where my market is, and taking advantage of my cell phone and my laptop and everything, social media and all this stuff.
Hi, Thabo, can you hear me?
All right, yeah, I do.
Perfect. I think we lost connection there. So what I took from what you said is that you sell from various markets, you're an active marketer, and as a young individual, you're definitely leveraging off social media to sell all your livestock. But tell me, are there any high barriers to entry when one should enter the livestock farming? From a certification point of view, from a market point of view? You mentioned that you're exporting as well. So are there any high barriers to entry that exist within cattle or livestock farming?
Yeah, I would say there's quite a lot of barriers. I mean, livestock farming as a whole, actually, you need quite a lot of, livestock farming goes hand in hand with numbers. I mean, the more you have, the more money you'll make. So that requires a lot of capital now to actually sell. I mean, to actually take your livestock from the farm straight to the market, to your local auction. That costs a lot of money. So I would say capital is the most important. It's the barrier actually of starting your livestock production. I mean, you need to buy your feeds, medication, and everything. That is why it becomes very difficult for your smallholder or your emerging farmers to actually get on game and then to emerge to commercial farming.
Let's talk about the capital. If you could just give me an idea. So if someone is listening to us and really wants to start livestock farming, and you mentioned that one of the barriers to entry is capital, give us an idea. If someone wanted to farm bonsmara cattle, for example, how much must they have saved up just to start, to make sure that they've got enough feed? They can look after, they can pay for their employees and just manage that small operation. And if it's not bonsmara cattle, maybe also just give us an example on sheep farming or goats. So how much on average as a start would you advise someone to start with?
Yeah, so normally, honestly speaking, when it comes to livestock, which is your cattle and then your bonsmaras, you're talking quality. If you want to get a good price at the local auction, you'll have to invest in quality. That is how quality becomes affordable to most of the people. So quality never comes cheap. To start with cattle, I always advise people, if you want to start with cattle, rather go and start with 20 cattle. To keep 1 or 5, that's backyard farming. So start with go big or go home. Start with 20 cattle. So normally your heifers all cost around about 16,000. your bulls will be a reserve price normally at auction is 32,000. So you're talking about more than 450,000 just to start with that 20 heifers and that one bull. But I mean, yes, you all start small. You all start from the bottom. I mean, when you start from the top, it's when you're digging a hole. So I mean, and then that's why I always advise people to start with small stock. I mean, start small, go from. I mean, you don't jump from one thing to another. You need to master your small stock production. So normally, because small stock requires a lot. I mean, not a lot of money, but it requires less money than starting with large stock. So I normally advise people to go for your poultry because I mean, people don't have land. So I always advise people to go. If you don't have land, but at least start with chicken farming, your poultry, or start with piggery because it doesn't require a lot of space. Or go for goats. I mean, goats require less maintenance. They don't require a lot of maintenance, a lot of feeding, a lot of whatever, because these are quite hardy animals. So normally I do tell people, if you want to start with small stock, I mean, you talk about around about 100,000. If you start with cattle, you talk about around about 450,000. If you start with poultry, just to build the house can cost you up to 50,000. So you talk about 100,000 as well to get the feed, the day-old chicks, and the infrastructure to start. So I mean, farming, it's quite difficult to get into farming. It costs a lot of money. So normally, so people when they see us on social media and everything, they think, yo, these guys are it's life, but it's there's a lot going on behind closed doors.
I know, I can definitely relate. Farming does rely on a lot of capital, but from a livestock farming perspective, going back into what you currently do, is it important to for farmers to start growing their own feed or to buy feed? Which one is the best so that one can really manage their operational expenses effectively?
I'll say the best one is to grow your own feed. I mean, having to travel from one place to your nearest co-op, that costs you diesel, just diesel alone. And then you'll have to spend money now on the fees and everything. So it takes a lot of energy and money actually to actually buy from your local auction. So that's why I always advise people to take advantage of what you have, the little backyard or whatever, to grow your own maize and just to crush it and produce silage for your livestock. So that will save you a lot on your inputs.
So going back to when you started, because now you mentioned you're a cattle farmer, and then now you're saying that it's also important for a cattle farmer to also grow their own feed so that they can minimize the traveling distance and the increased expenses in buying their own feed. So now what I'm hearing is that it's like managing two forms of farming, livestock and a bit of grain, because then you must have a bit of experience and knowledge to manage your cattle or livestock, and then you must also have some experience or knowledge in growing the feed. So that means you need to know the right maize cultivars, the right fertilizing programs, and you also need some significant amount of land to also grow that maize. So for a person who really wants to pursue livestock farming, would you advise them to get mentors? Is there support in the industry from a livestock farming perspective that could help and ensure the success of livestock farmers, not only growing and raising their cattle, but making sure that their feed or maize or grain production is of high quality so that they could incorporate it into their business? So my question is, in essence, are there mentors available in this specific side of farming? And is there a lot of support from other input suppliers?
Yes, I mean, there is a lot of mentors. I mean, that's why I always advise people. I mean, find your nearest mentor. I mean, I cannot mentor you through phone if you're living in Durban or you're living in Cape Town. So let's tell people, go to your nearest auction, go to your nearest farmer's day, go to your nearest whatever, anything agricultural, go there. That's where you'll find your. My mentor is actually my close family friend. So I mean, it's one of the best countries. That's where I mean, go to your nearest farmer. That's where you can your agricultural advisors, which offer you free advice. I mean, they didn't pay for the free.
Sorry, Thabo, can I just interrupt you there? I think you took down your headphone and I'm struggling
Yeah,
to
yeah.
hear you.
Sorry,
Okay,
sorry. All right.
perfect. Now we can hear you. So I think we got a bit of what you said, and if you could expand on that. You mentioned that the individuals must go to the nearest auctions, agricultural events, anything happening in their town specific to agriculture, that's where they can get advisors or mentors. And then you mentioned something about them also speaking to agricultural advisors. Just expand on that a bit.
I mean, yes, I mean, in terms of agricultural advisors, we do have advisors who specialize in crop production, who specialize in animal production. So these are the right people actually to go and ask advice for. I mean, if you want to maybe start your crop production, they can at least give you access to funding like your diesel or startup seeds, or they can borrow you tractors. I mean, these are the right people to actually get into. I mean, it's really difficult as a Black individual to get into farming. So I mean, that's why we solely depend on the government. I mean, it's government resources for aid. So I think there's always advise people. I mean, if you want to start, first connect yourself with the right people, get a mentor, go to the Department of Agriculture, and then you can start. And then as well, get your livestock accreditation certificate. I mean, now farming, you need to be registered in a database in order to get access into to funding or for people to actually recognize you as a farmer. You need to register your livestock identification certificate.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
to pause there, but I just want to encourage you to, everybody that's listening, to please
yeah,
ask questions. We are speaking to Thabo Dithakgwe, who is from the Northwest and is a successful and thriving young farmer who is primarily focusing on livestock farming. So please feel free to interact and engage on all the platforms from wherever you're watching. Thabo, so Mike, you mentioned something about agricultural advisors, and to be quite honest, I don't know if in your province you're getting great support, but a number of farmers also feel discouraged that they actually don't get enough support from agricultural advisors. And I think in this essence, you're referring to extension officers from the Department of Agriculture, Forestries and Fisheries. So yeah, how is your experience being? Are you getting support from your local DAF office? And yeah, and how is it that they're supporting you?
yeah. I mean, one thing that I always tell people, I mean, you cannot expect these people to come to you just overnight. You need to go visit them, build a good relationship with them, invite them on your farm. Don't bring them there and then let them starve. They cook good food for them, and then they'll come. They'll come and help you. I mean, I wouldn't want to work a whole day helping you with your cattle, but I won't get to get lunch or whatever. So normally I do take that at my own cost. I go to my local office, I get my extension office, I leave with him to the farm. We work, I cook for him, cater for him, and then bring him back. And as well, I was fortunate enough to be one of the beneficiaries of the bulls that were actually donated by one of the local stud breeders, actually black stud breeders of Maras, through the MEC of Agriculture in the Northwest Province. So that is how actually, but the MEC recognized me on Twitter. So there's I always tell people to take advantage. This is your best weapon. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all those social media platforms. Take advantage of them. Go to the DMs, DM them and tell them, my local office is not actually helping me. So I had to jump from local to provincial. I'm coming to you, MEC, to actually ask for help because my local extension offices are not willing to help. And then obviously the MSC will have to come straight to the farm and see your challenges and address your challenges.
Wow, Thabo, you're making me smile right now because I can definitely see that you're a go-getter. You don't sit back and wait for things to come through to you. You go ahead. And even if you inherited a farm, because sometimes people think, farmers that got farms are lucky, whether it's from family, whether it's from the state, and therefore typically the perception is that people that inherited farms really don't work hard for these opportunities that they get, but at least you are, dispelling those stereotypes. You're challenging those perceptions of individuals, and that is something to be commended, especially as a young individual. It's about going out there and going for what you want, and sometimes people just expect that, a lot of the things that get given to them. As a young individual, I'm sure amongst your peers, friends, what do they say when you tell them that you're a farmer? Do they laugh at you? Are they surprised, or are they shocked? Even at auction houses, as young as you are, how's the feedback when people look at you and when you tell them that you're a farmer?
Yeah, I mean, most of my peers actually, I mean, they're quite inspired, I mean, by my success actually of being a young farmer. I was actually inspired by Hendrik Prover, a Brahman breeder in the Northwest Province. I mean, he started farming at the age of 50. So I told myself that, I mean, why? I mean, most of the farmers, especially white farmers, they start farming at a very tender age. Why can't our own black farmers start at that age as well? I mean, look, starting at 15, imagine if you're 20 years now. I mean, you're way ahead of other people. So they always advise people that start today and you'll achieve your day earlier. I mean, you'll achieve your goal a day earlier than if you start tomorrow. So start today, get started. Don't say I will start after 5 years, after 20, because most of the farmers, I mean, they start after retirement. They use their retirement fees to start farming. Why can't our own young people start farming at a very tender age? I mean, it is where there's potential. I mean, that's always say the next billionaires is this generation of farmers. The next generation of farmers will be billionaires. So those are, I advise our own black people, our own black parents. Come on, support your children. I mean, this is generational wealth. Yeah, this. I mean, farming will save us from poverty. I mean, having to create your own jobs. There's no jobs anymore. So create your own legacy that will employ people, that will benefit local communities, create employment to local communities. So that's why I always emphasize on generational wealth, because that is why other people, they argue that at 20 years, how I inherited, and my son or my children, my future children will be lucky enough to have something that I can leave for them, a legacy they can run. I mean, farming is not an overnight success. What I'll achieve now in my next 40 years or 60 years, I don't know when I will die, but at least I know that my children will have something to start with, something to create for themselves and take it to the next level.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for the wise words. Going back to youth and farming, you mentioned that you want to Black parents of young children or youth to support their children when they start their own businesses or when they want to pursue farming. What advice would you give to any youth that look up to you and that are listening to this podcast and they're like, yeah, Thabo, I hear you. Farming is my passion. I definitely want to start as little as I can to grow into my big dreams. But they're just thinking, you just mentioned big numbers there. Cattle, you need to start with about 400,000. Goat and sheep plus minus 100,000, and they need land, etc. Not only to raise their cattle, but also for grazing. And so for a young agricultural graduate who's unemployed right now, who really wants to pursue farming, what advice would you give them? Like, what career opportunities should they go for if farming is their ultimate goal, but they just really don't have the capital to start their farming business?
Yeah. So also, I always advise young graduates, get your license, go to the nearest Department of Agriculture, obtain that livestock education certificate, go to CEDA, get a business plan, go to NYDA, get funding, and get started. We have government bodies that are actually willing to fund young people. Even the state, the government departments, agriculture departments are willing to fund young graduates, because sitting at home doing nothing, it's quite horrible. But why don't you start now? Start your backyard garden, and then the people from the government or from your local office will recognize your hard work through backyard garden. because I mean, we all start small. I mean, farming, you try. You don't go big and you start running a 2,000 hectare farm. No, you start small. You master your backyard gardening, or you master whatever that you have. I mean, that is why I said go to your department, and those people are willing. There's a lot of money in the state, and we actually want young, vibrant people, young farmers to actually get started. So they don't know where to pump money into. I mean, you can't say home and expect funds to come to you or expect the funding to come to you. You need to go to the right people, the right offices, your NYDA, your Department of Rural Development and Land Reform. I mean, now currently farms are available for leasing. So as a young graduate, people, I mean, they will take you as first preference because they know that you had to go and study for agriculture. So this is the first person that you have to give the farm or award the farm to, because you know he wants, or he or she wants to go in the field of farming. That is why he or she went as much as going to study for agriculture.
So what I'm hearing you say is this: if people want to go into farming, they must obviously do their homework, right?
Yes.
They must make use of these agricultural events that are happening in and around hometowns or nearby cities. That is where they can find the right mentors and connect and link up with advisors. If they want access to market, they must be very active in seeking market, and therefore they should use social media, leverage of social media as a channel or a platform to market their cattle or products or services if they're in the agricultural sector or whatever other business. But so they can make use of Facebook to sell their goats, sheep, Twitter, etc. If they are dissatisfied with the service that they're receiving, they must still make use of social media platforms like Twitter, like Facebook, send the DMs to the ministers, to the executives, those people in power, and really complain and say, I'm in this area, I'm not getting much help. But most importantly, if you're a young graduate, you're unemployed, you definitely have to create opportunities yourself, because the job market is shrinking and it is continuing to shrink. And so if they're really passionate about farming, they must look at going to obviously register their business, go to CEDA, get a business plan, go to the NY, National Youth Development Agency, and apply for funding. Over and above that, take advantage of the opportunity that it currently exists with the land that is available that the Minister Thabo Dithakgwe recently announced of, I think it was about 700,000 hectares. So they must take advantage of those opportunities, because the state desperately needs young agricultural graduates or youngsters who want to pursue farming to take advantage of all these opportunities. So yeah, it's quite a lot that you've said there, and I hope for people that are listening, that they could try all these interventions. I know sometimes government does take time, but I think we must emphasize that people should exercise a bit of patience when they're going through these mediums and channels. So Thabo, I just want to find out from, to just close off our conversation, is what are your future prospects? Where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years? And yeah, what is your vision for your farm?
I mean, I'm actually in a plan of commercializing or going to commercial, because I mean, you can't always be emerging farmers. I think this thing of emerging farmers is too political. But yeah. I see myself as a commercial farmer by next year at the age of 21. And I'm looking at employing more people, diversifying my farming operation and going to crop. And that is how I actually employ more people. So I see myself as creating at least 20 permanent jobs on my farming operation in a 5-year plan. And as well, I mean, getting access to another farm and playing. And I mean, it's quite difficult to get to actually expand your farming operation. But I'm actually learning how to access another farm and actually at least run 3 farms by age 25, employing 20 people. So that's why I actually see myself creating jobs for people, because there's no jobs. There's no jobs.
Yeah, well, that's very noble, Thabo. And I know I said it's closing off, but about land, which is always a hot topic. People want to know, where do I find land? Obviously, you mentioned that it's about taking opportunities that the state is providing. But just one last question on the land aspect. Would you advise people to rent or to buy land, especially for cattle farming? I know crop production is quite intensive on my end, and a lot of infrastructure needs to go into land, especially if you want to be at reach commercial stage. But for cattle, is it a great opportunity rather to pursue renting or leasing a farm for long term? Because really cattle, I don't think, and I stand to be corrected, I don't think it requires that much of infrastructure as compared to horticultural production. Is that true?
Yes, it's quite true. I mean, that's why I always advise people. I mean, if you want to start, at least you can't expect to. I mean, farm prices are actually inflated because of this land issue. So you can't actually get 20 million within a day. So for now, try and lease a farm, a state farm, or lease a farm from your neighbor or your nearest farmer in your local area. But there are farms at the Department of Agriculture, Rural Development, and Land Reform, where you get a big farm and you pay an annual fee, which is quite low. I mean, they're actually subsidizing us on these large farms.
Yeah.
So this is like, for now, as a start, lease a farm, run with that farm for at least 10 years, and try to buy that very same farm within 5 or 10 year period, and then expand your farming operation by going to your local banks and buy a farm through banks. I mean, there's a lot of institutions that are actually willing to help black farmers. I mean, we have Land Bank where you can buy a farm and they will subsidize the farm for you, and you pay within you pay an annual fee, which is quite low, very low.
Yeah. Wow, so thank you so much, Thabo. I just want to close off to say any last words that you want to impart with all the listeners. I know you've shared a wealth of information, but just from you authentically, do you have any last words for our viewers today?
Yeah, guys, I mean, every business that you venture into, enter it with great passion, with great love. I love this quote by Albert Schweitzer that, you know, success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. If you love what you're doing, you will be successful.
Absolutely. Wow. I can't add anything more to that, but thank you so much, Thabo, for your time. I wish you the best with your farm operations. Yeah, I hope you get many more presidential acknowledgements, because we need young individuals like yourself really taking the sector forward. We're right there with you. You know, I'm in a different province, but definitely, yeah, I wish you the best of luck and keep inspiring and keep doing amazing work. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. It's quite an honor.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you guys for watching. We've just chatted with Thabo Dithakgwe, who is a young, thriving farmer in the Northwest Province. And yeah, as you heard, he's a successful livestock farmer, definitely trying his operations with mixed livestock, that being cattle, goat, and sheep. And you can hear from his story that, you know, he's quite a passionate individual. He's really advocating for youth in farming to really take advantage of the opportunities that exist from the state, from the government, you know, the land that is being made available by the Department of Agriculture, using and making effective use of the state funding systems or models that are available, approaching CEDA, National Youth Development Agency, the IDC, the Land Bank. All these organizations have an interest in youth and farming. He's definitely receiving a lot of help and support from his nearby agricultural extension officers. And for those of you who are always complaining and wanting to know about where you find market, Thabo gave us the most simplest solution. Use social media. Market your products, your services, your cattle, your crops, whatever you're farming, on different social media platforms: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. whatever, because people are always looking for new products. There's always demand, there's a lot of market. And yeah, so thank you so much to Thabo, and please join us next week, Tuesday, as we have another guest in store, and be sure to look out on our social media pages for who that guest will be. But thank you so much for joining us, and have a good week ahead. Thank you.